Hi, everybody. How are you? What is going on? Hey, everyone. Hey, Falcon of Venom. Hey, Ice Bunny. Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody. Oh, what's going on? Oh, I know what that is. I'm not muted. Hey, everyone. Wait, there. Now I'm muted. I'm muted up there. Hey. Hi, everyone. Hi. How are you? Hey, Levi. So, oh, wait. I'm Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole. How is everybody? I be Boodle. So a couple of things. One, I want to apologize for starting late. We had a power outage on campus and we had no power. And so I could not get on to the internet or use my computer. And then it finally fixed itself, right? I was like, oh, people, come on now. We gotta go. Finally fixed it. And then my computer was not in a happy space because it got shut off inappropriately, and my Steam library was deleted. It wasn't deleted, it just wasn't connected. Anyway, it was a bit of a hullabaloo getting started. So we are now here. I'm here. I'm so excited. I know there's no power with this beard, but we are all set up now. Also, I want to tell you that I'm going to end early today. I'm going to end at 8 o'clock because that is when Wind Down happens on Geek Space TV, and it is the last Wind Down, and I am going to be there to mod. Galfork tumbles in. Trooper solves the power grid, and the internet already masters the game of life. Why do we need a game now? It is fair. It is fair. How is my wrist doing? So my wrist, how is it doing? Regular wrist. I'm feeling pain right there, but I have, it's less pain, and that's more extension than I've had before. I still can't sort of, So it's, I've got another week. I've got another week of being in the brace and taking anti-inflammatories, and I'm hoping by the end of that second week, I will be golden. Golden. Also, it's good to see everybody here. Hey, Galfork. I was just, doing some French resistance reading. Well, Ice Bunny, you all asked how it was doing, so I had to let you know how it was doing, and that involved injuring myself a little bit, apparently. Today we had, I had to go to a retirement farewell thing. That is done. Tomorrow is Friday, and I probably have to do a little bit more stuff, but then I'm done. Wait. Galfork, why? Oh, caps. Sorry, just less caps. It hurts when I touch my leg. It hurts when I touch my nose. It hurts when I touch my arm. You have a broken finger. Oh! Night butt is a butt. It's a butt. Night butt is completely a butt. So here, Galfork, it's super easy because I'm left-handed, right? I injured my right wrist, but I'm left-handed, so I can still punch the Nazis with my left hand. And then I think that if I were super hardcore, I'd hit them, because there's hear that? It's got kind of like a metal thing in there, like a metal, whatnot, and so I could just whoosh, hit them, right? I can then punch the Nazis, block whoosh, if they come at me with swords. Don't ask me why. So that they're Nazis, and also that I'm oh no, block, sword, punch in the face, right? And then it's perfect. And it's like having a buckler, but it's a wrist brace. This is exactly the same as a buckler. People don't want to tell you that, but that's true. So just like that, that's what I want to tell you. Right. So we're gonna end a little bit early because of Wind Down. So and the last No, you're right. If I block with my injured hand, it won't get better. But today's the last in the studio show for Geek Space TV, as far as I know. Right. Thank you, Galfork. And like, see, Galfork knows. And here's the thing. In the SCA, if you're doing fencing, right, and you're using a rapier in your dominant hand, rapier fighting in the SCA, which is a medieval reenactment society, you can do single sword, right, which is your rapier. You can do rapier and main gauche, right, so dagger. You can do rapier and buckler. You can do rapier and cloak. You can do 2 rapiers. But if you do rapier, single rapier, you can still actually use your hand, right? Usually you have your hand in a heavy glove. You don't like, if somebody's coming at the sword like this, poke, you don't like do that, because then you just get poked in your hand, and that's no good. But if somebody's coming in, you can sweep, right? You can like sweep, especially if you've got like good arm heading, you can sweep the rapier away and then poke them. And as a lefty, right, so I quite enjoyed it, because as a lefty, the person I'm fencing, they're right-handed, so they're coming at me this way. So all I have to do is just get a little bit to, like, if I can move a little bit to the left, I can usually either with my dagger or with my offhanded weapon, it's actually fine. I can just sort of, if I can bind up their rapier this way across their body, leaving me open, then I can just poke them. Just like poke with the sword. Because it is excellent. This is all. Why do you have a sword coming out of your hand? I blocked with a shield? Obviously not. Lefties. Although lefties, you know, since you rarely fight a lefty, as a lefty, when I come up against lefty, I was like, oh, we're mirrored. Weird. And then that's a little unnerving. But you know, you deal with it. So early ending. Our giveaway today is Rock of Ages 2 Bigger and Bolder, which is a racing game. Good to know that I'm the only left turned right. Character simulation of a movie. I don't know if John Wick is my thing. I'm not the biggest fan of Keanu Reeves, and everybody's description of it is it's got great gun fu, but really no discussion of, and also like there's no plot really, and the acting's like whatever, but like the special effects are really good, the action's really good. But I was like, I could probably just watch a John Woo film, right? Like I could go watch Hard Boiled. I'm sorry that you were forced to do things with your right hand, Ice Bunny. I have heard, I don't know if this is true, that forcing left-handed people to be right-handed can result in dyslexia and other issues. So I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. Equilibrium. I see you, Galfork. Bleeding Edge fight choreography is cool, but I'll wait until it's out on DVD or whatever. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I hear that it's really not good for people who are super left-handed to be forced to be right-handed, and it, you know, it can be... No, Galfork, don't feel shame. If you enjoy it, feel no shame about it. Love it, embrace it. I am an opponent of shaming people for liking things that don't hurt anyone. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, my dad was not a lefty, but he went to Catholic school, and the nuns would hit people if they tried to write with their left hand. Yeah, so that's like rough. Equilibrium isn't that bad. It just came out a year late. So I saw Shadow the other night. I think I told you all. Last night I saw it, and it was by the guy that did Hero and House of Flying Daggers, I think. and I thought it was really good. Poor Sean Bean, though. Continue the trend of his failure to survive. Anything. It's not even a spoiler at this point in time. Is Sean Bean in it? Yeah, he dies. Yeah, Sean Bean. Sorry. That big Imgur thing about how staircases were built in early castles to favor defenders was really interesting. Oh yeah, totally. But then, and especially if you've ever been to like an actual medieval staircase, they're super awkward. But then that means, oh, he does survive in Troy. But that means then that as a lefty, I actually have the advantage going up staircases because they, right, like I have mobility in that direction. So, right? Thought? That's a thought. Hi, everybody. I've missed you all. Can I tell you? And then there's that family that was primarily left-handed, so they built everything backwards. Ooh. Do you know left-handed people die younger? They don't have as long a life expectancy as right-handed people because of accidents, mostly. Just noting it. You just have less of a disadvantage as a lefty because you're... Wait, Levi, are you saying that because you have the higher ground, you know, that you can win that battle because of the higher ground? Because that's what I learned from Star Wars. Except no one was trained to sword fight as a lefty, really. Ooh, I have to go back to look at some of my rapier treatises and see what they say about lefties, actually. Were there really this many rulers flying around? My earliest days were at Horde Lutheran Elementary School. They mostly focus on the powers of embarrassing you to the audience and making you feel shame under a withering scowl. That's no good. It's not a thing. Wait, it's not a thing with Jedi mind powers. I got it. John Wick is equilibrium minus the giver Fahrenheit 451. Oh. Huh. Interesting. So like here, like I'm gonna tell you, like real full disclosure. Well, are they? I don't know. So the thing is, you know the Matrix movies? I don't know. You might have heard of them. They're a thing. They're these movies. And I watched the first one. I feel like that's a bit of a myth. Anyway, look, so the Matrix movies, they were popular. They were films. And the first one I mostly enjoyed, except that I was distracted by Keanu Reeves's wooden acting. And for parts of the movie, it was fine because he didn't have to do much acting in that movie. But there's a whole plot point about how he and Trinity have to be have to be attracted to each other, and he could not generate any kind of sexual tension with Carrie-Anne Moss, and she was trying, and like whenever they would have their kind of romantic scenes, and he was so wooden that it just pulled me out of the movie, and I couldn't enjoy it that much. And then it was still okay. It was like fine. It just was like a little bit irritating. And then The Matrix 2, he had to do more acting and more romance, and it was bad. And I could not enjoy The Matrix 2 because his acting was not working for me. It was not working, and that just pulled me out of the movie. You know, that's all I'm saying. Yeah. But what if my wine tastes like water? Emperor Sock, that's a very good question. What if your wine tastes like water? Somebody is cheating you, is what has happened. Somebody is cheating you. The Matrix 3, Rave of Death. I didn't even watch The Matrix 3. Yeah, I just feel like, yeah. You know, speaking of, if you're supposed to be emotionally dead, then it's okay if you're not a good actor. Oh yeah, no, I know that Keanu Reeves is a gun nut and he's like super into it. And like, I mean, like he's super into doing the stunts himself. Like he's into it. I've seen the hype machine where they're like, no, he does all the stunts himself, and like you see him doing the training. It is. I do a lot of pistol and rifle training, and honestly, it's nice for gunfights to make at least some sense, and the cinematography is pretty great too. there are certain movies where they really sell that the actor does it, like the Mission Impossible movies. That's another big one. They're like, Tom Cruise does all this stuff himself. And I'm like, I didn't think Mission Impossible was that amazing. The most recent one, I was like, whatever. Actually, it annoyed me, to be honest. I was like, I don't like it. We're talking John Wick and also Mission Impossible. Right? They're movies with really good fighting. Plus, oh, I wanted to tell you about bad actors being people who are emotionally deadened. Sorry, I just remembered. So I don't know if you watched Dollhouse, the TV show by Joss Whedon. And in it, right, Eliza Dushku has got to be dead and like blank when she's in her dollhouse space. And then when she goes off to outside, she has a personality and she does stuff. And I'm going to tell you something. There were a number of actors, Enver Gokai and Dachman Leichman and her, and they all had to be like dead inside, sort of like blank. And the other two people are really good actors, and they could play blank in a way that was not bad. But whenever Eliza Dushku, and I really loved her as Faith, right? Whenever she tried to play blank, it was cringeworthy, because she was not a good enough actor to be able to pull off that blankness and have it work well. So I think actually being dead and blank and have that actually read well is not necessarily easy, is all I'm going to say. I just watch movies like John Wick just for the action, for switching off, to be honest, like brain off. Plot, character, and action maybe both along. It's too much to ask. I never turn off my brain. It is one of my problems, is that I am never turning off my brain. Like, and I like action movies, right? But I want, like, for example, like Mad Max Fury Road. That was awesome. I thought that was so great. But I do like, yeah, I can never turn off my brain. I just found a new movie I need to watch. It's one of the big inspirations for Reservoir Dogs. When people accuse Quentin Tarantino of stealing, he was like, oh man, that's a great movie. You should go watch it. It's got a ton of stuff from it. Oh, City on Fire. Oh, I should look at it. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. Wait, Wind Down. Is it really? Is it really in 50? What? I think people always underestimate what is needed to be a proper villain. Like, a good played villain requires, to be a good villain takes so much skill. It is really hard. Yeah, it is really hard to do a good villain, to do it really well and have it not. You know what is also really hard? Yeah, it is at 5 p.m. It is true. You know what is also very hard to do? It is hard to do Sweet Innocent really well and not have it be like cloying. And there's a Wind Down Tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time, where I think Anna's going to give us the final word on what's going on with the next phase of GSTV, or if there will be a next phase, or what's going on. I think it is probably the last Wind Down. I don't know what is going to happen, because they're going to shut down the physical studio space. But I don't know if that means they're not going to do remote shows anymore, or if they will, or if they're not. I don't know. But we're going to find out at the Wind Down. And I don't know if something else has been lined up. You know, I'm saying that there are things that I don't know. And I would like to find out. That is a question that I have. I mean, I like Eliza Dushku, but she was not strong enough as an actor to pull off blank, is what I would say. That she didn't work it out. I love a good cider. I do not have any. Nope, I don't have any cider with me. I'm sorry. I do not have any. There was something that we're saying. Oh, right. So Shadow was, it was really interesting. It was martial arts film set in a kind of a fantastical space. Would have made a good blank. Vampire. And it is, what I thought was really interesting is that it felt like the action felt very gritty. So like you're thinking about like a good wuxia film with like wire work and right, you know, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. It's beautiful and balletic. And there was like some of that in some of the like there was like a bit of a training montage where things were sort of pretty, but for the most part it was not pretty. Like when you got into the actual fight, oh, ooh, ooh. It was harsh. It looked like it hurt. It was sort of messy. It was really good. It was really, really good. Look, I'm just saying Keanu is a good actor, particularly at empty vessel sorts. See, the thing is, Krillin, I thought he was actively bad in The Matrix and in The Matrix 2, and I thought he was really bad in Little Buddha. And I thought he was really bad in Much Ado About Nothing. He was fine in Speed, I suppose. But in those other, like, oh, he was also fine in Bill and Ted. I have not seen My Private Idaho, which I hear he was also very good in. But, oof, I'm just saying. Isn't that the purpose of fighting, that someone gets hurt? But that is not always the purpose of fight choreography, right? Sometimes you want your fight choreography to look beautiful. Sometimes you want your fight choreography to look disturbing. Oh, he was outclassed, B. Boodle. Because here's the thing about fight scenes. Sometimes what people don't want fight scenes to look painful and disturbing, right? Like there's like a whole bunch of like there's like, you can think about the kind of range of fight scenes. When you think about fight scenes and things like, especially for kids, fight scenes for kids, or for people who don't like disturbing stuff, you'll get a lot of punch 'em up like, psh, I punch you, psh, oh no, a little bit of blood in the corner, I can't believe you did that, oh, punch you, right? And you like big smack and like sort of big punches, big roundhouses, but nobody looks like they're really hurt. Like, yeah, you know what I think? Jerry, I think you're right. I think he does need a good director. Like, I actually also think Natalie Portman needs a good director. I think that those are people that need. Jared just said that Branagh is not the best director. What? I'm not scandalized. Don't worry about it. Pardon me. I just hiccuped right there. I'm not going to be scandalized by your comment, Jer. I will. I don't think I don't. There was some shade. There was like a little umbrella being thrown there. He's a far better actor. I think. I've got the hiccups. Interesting. So I have not thought about whether or not Branagh is not a good director, and I have to think about it. And I think what I would say is. He's got an accent, though. He has to be amazing. I don't think he's a bad director, right? In the sense of like, they're actively bad directors. And I don't think he's a bad director. He did Thor, right? He did the first Thor? Yeah. I think he's quite good with visuals. I don't know if, like, I don't know what his relationship to the actors are. I suppose that's what I would say. So I can't, like, I don't know. I have to think about that. There was quite a lot about the original Thor that I did like. I mean, I think the Captain America movies are really good. But the original Thor had really good visuals. I mean, here's the thing. I just want to say that Branagh's a better director than some people. No, I've never seen your films. I can't say. Yeah, no, I did really. Although, actually, but Branagh did not direct that Othello, I don't think. Right? I think he was in it, but I don't think he directed it. Now, hold on, I've got to check because I I didn't think he directed. I thought he didn't. I didn't think he. I thought that was one of the ones that you thought that he directed, but he didn't. That was the one with Lawrence Fishburne, right? That was directed by. Yeah, that was not Branagh. That was Oliver Parker. He was in it, but he didn't direct it. But that was a great film. Yeah. Do I teach film? I do media. I do film, and I mean I do my degrees in music, but I also do film, television, video games. So I talk about sound and media together. I mean, I teach a class. I teach a couple of classes on music and film. So I do have some film and television and video game stuff right in there as well. The shade of it all, Ger, the shade of it all. Did he direct the Mel Gibson Hamlet? Ooh, that is a very good question. I think Mel Gibson directed that one, right? I want the Mel Gibson Hamlet. Mel Gibson Hamlet. No, that's Ethan Hawke Hamlet. Come on. Oh, there we go. That was no, that was Zeffirelli. That was Zeffirelli who did that Hamlet. Zeffirelli who did the famous 68, 69 Romeo and Juliet. I prefer my Hamlets to be younger. Which is actually, yeah. No, first off, I will tell you, Ice Bunny, my brain never turns off. It is a bit of a problem that I have, that I never turn off my brain. The thing about that Hamlet is that I think it was beautiful. But I thought there were some wasted opportunities in that Hamlet. You have Glenn Close as Gertrude, and they didn't give her much to do. Who was that? Wasn't that what's her face? Was Ophelia, Helena Bonham Carter. It was a great cast. It was a really, really good cast. I just think that it was not a particularly interesting interpretation of Hamlet, is what I would say. It's like some reality shows. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. So one of the best Hamlets that I saw, one of the Hamlets that I really, really enjoyed, was a Hamlet done by the theater company that. So in the Army, sometimes we have things, and when I was in Germany, there was a theater company. There was an Army theater company. It was like, so soldiers would go and audition for plays, and they do plays, and they did a Hamlet that was really good. It was one of my favorite versions of Hamlet. I was not in it. I was not in this one. But what was really great about it is that did I see Tenet's? No, I did not see Tenet's Hamlet, but I heard really good things about it. I heard really good. Wait, no, I didn't see his Hamlet. I saw his Richard II, I think, and that was very good. I really liked his Richard II. And so I imagine his Hamlet's also very good. But so the Hamlet we had. So here's the thing about when Hamlet starts the play. Elsinore is under siege, right? So like it starts off with the soldiers on guard duty, and and they're under siege from Fortinbras, and it's like the seeing of the ghost, and like we had things in the Army sometimes, and what was really great about that particular production is that for like quite a bit of the play, they're under siege and in like intense military stress, and most of the productions of Hamlet don't recognize that at all. And this was done by by military people, and so it was so good. Like the soldiers were like on guard duty, they were kind of tired, they were freaked out. There was a very kind of like heavy oppressive tone because everybody's like, oh, what's gonna happen? And then when the ghost shows up, like you could kind of see this being a kind of like people being freaked out. It was really well done. I appreciated I appreciated that. You know, it's funny about the length of what people cut and what they don't cut for a Shakespeare play is interesting. Because some things probably should not be cut. I mean, like, you know, we don't tend to go to plays for 4 hours. Wait, how long was Branagh's Hamlet? Let me see. If that was the full... Wait, let me go back. Hold on. I want to find out. We're hanging out. We're finding out. Hamlet, Branagh, Julie Christie. This was... how long? Give me a length. 4 hours and 2 minutes, everybody. Yeah, 4 hours and 2 minutes was the Branagh Hamlet. I wanted to see Coriolanus with who was in that? Gang, I'm telling you, I'm a bit of a Shakespeare nerd. I like myself some Shakespeare, but I don't think that Shakespeare is some kind of like genius that you have to treat like he should be dead in a museum. We're all stark raving sane. I mean, what I love about Shakespeare is that Shakespeare is like bawdy and dirty, and it's like rah, you know. Like I love that Shakespeare is like it's a little bit rough, and I like it. And I think that we sometimes sanitize Shakespeare in ways that are not particularly interesting. His plays are no. No, Shakespeare is not the only plays that high school students should do ever. I feel like, isn't 4 hours for a play not normal? Shakespeare's fart jokes are awesome. This is what I'm saying. There are fart and sex jokes in Shakespeare. That's what I'm saying. 4 hours for a play is not particularly normal anymore. The Ring, Wagner wrote long. Wagner was like, I'm bigger and better and more important than everybody, so I'm gonna write super, super long. But like a lot of things are not 4 hours. And actually, also, I bite my thumb at thee. Galfork, do you bite your thumb at me, sir? Do you bite your thumb at me, sir? I love Julie Taymor's Titus. It's so good. So good. You know, B. Boodle, actually, I saw a version of Taming of the Shrew that I want to talk to you about because I think you'll find it really interesting. I was going to a play was the main form of entertainment. What here? Oh wait, Krellin. Here's the thing. You know, Shakespeare's plays were not 4 hours at the time. When Shakespeare was staging them, they didn't run 4 hours because their acting style was different. We just take up way more space. Oh, but do you bite your thumb at me, sir? I got to read the part of Mercutio in my freshman English class, which is the closest I've ever been to being in a play. Oh, did you enjoy it? So here's the thing, right? Jer, that's what I want to say. I've got so many things to say right now. But yeah, the acting style in Shakespeare's time tended to be a bit more declamatory. So they tended to just sort of read the text. They didn't do all the stuff that we do. So when we do it in our style, it's 4 hours. If you did it in Shakespeare style, it would not be a 4 hour play. It would be like 3 hours. 'Tis not as wide as a church door, nor as deep as a well, but is enough till will suffice. No, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. I love that opening. So here's the thing about Taming of the Shrew, B. Boodle. This is so interesting. I think you'll find this so fascinating. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. In my school class, I got to play the porter. Oh, so good. So here's the thing, B. Boodle. The way we plague on both your houses, the way that we do Taming of the Shrew is very different from the way we understand it's very different. No, Krellin, don't die. Ugh, dang it. I only have an apartment. Hold on. You know what I should do? Cher, you're here. Will you put me in just chatting? Since, you know, we've got only a half hour. So here's the thing. You may not know this. I got to see a performance of Taming of the Shrew done by the Royal Shakespeare Company when they were on tour. I got to see it in the Bay Area back home. And here's the thing that's really interesting about Taming of the Shrew. there are two framing scenes that are almost always cut when doing Taming of the Shrew. So the thing is that what's happening in the play is not real. None of it is real at all. It is not real. Instead, what you have is Christopher Shy is this sort of drunkard who's like talking big talk or whatever, and they basically like the framing of it is that this is a play being put on for Christopher Shy. So it's not actually it's a play. Like what we're seeing is we're not supposed to take this as real and as a thing that we're supposed to believe in. It is a thing that is theater. Nice. Cinnamon Theater Talk. That is a great title. I like it. Thank you, Jer. Super hardcore. Right. So it is meant to mock him, right? Because Christopher Shy says that he knows how to deal with women or whatever, but he's clearly like ridiculous. So it's a mockery of him. And the play ends. The last framing scene is where he's like, I have learned it. I know how to, like, he's like drunk and ridiculous and like, I've learned how to tame women. Right. And you're not supposed to, like, it's not that, right? Like that is not, but what ends up happening is that we cut those framing scenes and then we just run it as if it's sincere as opposed to a joke on someone, right? So we really do a number by cutting those scenes out. And I also think a real problem with Shakespeare is that I think very oftentimes we want to imagine Shakespeare, they do the play in the play, but they don't frame it that way. And I think one of the other problems with Shakespeare is that we tend to read Shakespeare as if it's the 1950s. You know, like we really take out some context that is really important to understand. So, for example, in Romeo and Juliet, right? Juliet, like I don't do it. Like most of his comedies are farce. Like there's a lot going on, right? These really there's satire in there. He's pushing things. But so you take a look at something like Romeo and Juliet as he's so dirty and it's so good. Alas, I must away to eat something, lest I expire before wind down. I shall return anon. Galfork, go. We will wait for you. So we often lose context, right? When I think about some of the ways we do, for example, Romeo and Juliet, we treat Romeo and Juliet as if Juliet is like a dumb ingenue who's just like hyper romantic, and that Romeo is like this dashing heroic figure, and we sort of just make it this sort of like 1950s imagination of a romance. Oh, hey, Galfork, before you go, wait, don't go yet. Galfork, don't go. I have to tell you something. Sorry, wait, I have to tell you. There was a guy who was an actor, a Shakespearean actor, and he was on stage and he was drunk and he had to leave and he couldn't remember his lines. And so he said, he improvised, he said, and I think it might have been Romeo and Juliet, like, because with the friar leaving message. So he says, so lead the way, Father, for heaven so shine, I cannot remember another blessed line. And then he walked off the stage, right? And that's what he did. Then lead the way, Father, for heaven so shine, I cannot remember another blessed line. And that was his way to get off stage. Oh my goodness. Oh, so good. When I get a chance, look for the TV show Upstart Crow, a British sitcom about a Shakespeare. Ooh, that sounds good. I like that. He did. He rhymed his way out. He got the rhyming couplet, so it was fine. That was it. But here's the thing that's really interesting about Romeo and Juliet that I think that people miss because they don't think about context, right? Like we just think of it as like, oh, like they're like, it's so romantic, right? But here's the thing. Juliet is an exceedingly strong character. Like as a character, her character, if you look at the context of what she's doing, is really a very, very strong character, right? So if she is risking basically her life, right? Because she's a woman in the Renaissance. If she's kicked out of her home for defying her father, which she does, she defies her father, like, I mean, she'll be on the streets and it'll be really awful for her, right? So she is not some kind of like dippy, like, oh, like she's taking very bold action that in the context is seen as sort of bold at the time. And Romeo's he's a little bit sort of wishy-washy. But the thing is that it's like very, like what they're doing is flouting convention, and it's dangerous. And I think I had my English teacher say Shakespeare is not for me, not in a German translation or English. Merry Wives of Windsor. Oh, that's a good one. I got to see a really good production of Merry Wives of Windsor. And one of the things I think is another thing, which actually, I don't know if you saw the Leo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, Romeo and Juliet. Romeo's the original bad boy. Mercutio might be more of the original bad boy, but you know, I see you. Bad boys of tragedy. Bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they rapier fight with you? Yeah. So here's the thing. I think that the Claire Danes, Leonardo DiCaprio, Romeo and Juliet did one thing I thought well, which is oh, okay, that's fair. That's fair. She saw Romeo before she saw Mercutio, because otherwise it would have been Mercutio all the time. Is that in this play, right, there are young men, yes, Romeo plus Juliet, there are young men with weapons roaming the streets attacking each other, right? Like when in the beginning of the play, you hear that the people of Verona are kind of freaked out and upset and are complaining to the prince because the Montagues and the Capulets are roaming the streets with weapons attacking each other like in the middle of the day. And it's like very disturbing and upsetting. And what I thought was good about the Leo version, Romeo plus Juliet, is that they used guns, so that as a modern audience, you might be able to get the sense that maybe this is actually kind of dangerous and creepy. Yeah, and it made the gang war things, and that I think that was for me my favorite part of Romeo plus Juliet, is it made the gang war thing feel real. That is, I think, my favorite part of that. I think that was really well done. The ongoing joke about his daughter wanting to act is great. You're a girl, you could never act in a portray believable woman. That's really good. Is it set in Shakespearean time? Because that's good. And I think one of the problems is that now the Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet, which uses swords, I think they did a good job because the sword fighting was pretty brutal. Like it was like, you know, they were punching each other and rolling around on the ground, and it was like, oh. But a lot of the way that people do Shakespeare is they do the fencing in a very classical fencing way, where it's like, aha, ha, 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 ha. Right, that's their fencing, and that doesn't really evoke a sense of danger in a way that it would, like with people, when people have like swords are dangerous. Oh yeah, the opening scenes of West Side Story also captured that feel really well, which I thought was also very good. Yes. Yeah. I loved it when Officer Cruppy came around. That was the best. And so like I just think that we sometimes lose a lot in Shakespeare by making it seem really pretty when like swords are weapons. Like I think we sometimes forget it, right? We forget that swords are weapons, and they will cut you. Like, and it's not good to be cut with a sword. That's no fun. Yeah, right? Like it's super dangerous. And I think that sometimes we just make it seem like, oh, it was the past, it was pretty. And it's like, no, it was the past. People like got cut with swords and died, and then they had sex with each other, and like they were running around, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that I think that sometimes things are lost when we lose the context. Do you know? When we think about how, oh, speaking of Kenneth Branagh, his big thing, right, was Henry V, and I think he did the Battle of Agincourt really well. Like I think you really got to see just how like miserable that kind of a battle was. I think that was a good moment. Oh yeah, one stab was all it took because blood transfusion did not exist, and they will cut you like a knife. Cut you like a knife. Feels so, and also gangrene, infections, Like, oh, right? I mean, this is, and so I did appreciate the Leo DiCaprio for sort of bringing in the game war aspect of it and making it feel dangerous and threatening, which I appreciated. Oh my gosh. Krellin is saying it's kind of unreal how much miracle blood transfusions are, right? I mean, when I think about how easy it was to die not that long ago, right? Like not that long ago at all. Sanitation, right? Isn't it funny how these little things can make these huge differences to society? Like little things that you don't, like everyone's like, oh, I don't know. People think about big things, but you know what was what had like a huge impact on society? Like reading glasses. When they were able to sort of get reading glasses so that people could still do like fine detailed work once they started losing their, like, you know, like that was like a big deal. So like in terms of reading, writing, detail work, a lot of sort of fine craftsmanship, people didn't have to lose their jobs. You know, the kind of increased efficiency that happens once we start getting reading glasses. Like, isn't that interesting? I think so. Yeah, people are going to be all wild about a cure for cancer, but that will still save less lives than basic sewage treatment and trash collection. Yes, that is completely true. Like a cure for cancer, that'll be great. But yeah, sanitation, trash collection. Oh my goodness. Krellin, you reminded me. I read an article in the news about a thing that is happening in New York right now, which is apparently a big deal. That, you know, it's about, you know, gentrification's happening, so they're coming in, they're building new buildings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Apparently, one of the side effects of these new buildings, all this new construction, is that it's disrupting rat warrens. And apparently, rats are a huge problem in New York right now, that the number of rat sightings have gone up from 20,000 a year to 40,000 a year, something insane like that, like they've doubled. So that there's just like rats everywhere in New York. And apparently it also does not help that New York tends to put the trash out on the street the night before, so then you have an entire night of rats being like, ooh, tasty, let me have all of this trash. So apparently rats are a problem, and somebody died of a rat-borne illness last year. So yeah, rats are huge in Seattle. And so they were saying that like it's a big deal in New York, but apparently it's like hitting some, like basically where they're doing a lot of construction, digging up stuff, and like this is causing a problem. I hope there's no plague. But like, whoa. So here's the question for you to bring this back to tabletop RPGs, which is going to be bad since there's way more people in New York City. Yeah, we only get a plague in remote communities with no nearby medical facilities. That can be bad, Krellin. I hope it. Ooh. So bringing this back to RPGs for a moment, I'm thinking about, is it really? New Mexico's the plague capital of the United States? Ooh. Also, I know that you're the Battle Buddies, you're the Foxhole, so you're going to give me a really good example. You're going to give me good answers for this one. I would like 6 cases annually. Oh, that's interesting. I want your thoughts on this. So we were talking about, having this discussion about Game of Thrones as low fantasy. And right, this Game of Thrones, the low fantasy, sort of pushing back against high fantasy, which I suppose would be Lord of the Rings would be high fantasy, I suppose. But is it? So I was thinking about, when we're thinking about high fantasy, what exactly do we mean by high fantasy? Like what, besides Disney films, right? Like what are our high, like really archetypical high fantasy media? I suppose books, right? Maybe. Because I'm thinking with high fantasy, you tend to have more black and white morality, more magic. Like I kind of think, when I think high fantasy, I kind of think Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, Dungeons and Dragons was influenced by Lord of the Rings, but I think it wasn't only influenced by Lord of the Rings, also like by like Vance. Video games maybe as well. Like when yeah. But there've got to be maybe some me. Oh, Terry Pratchett. Ooh, sock. That's a good one. That's a good one. D&D and books, magic being used and scary, right? Because I think that people always think of Lord of the Rings as high fantasy, and it's certainly epic fantasy, right? Like I think that like when I think of Lord of the Rings, I think it's epic fantasy, but like it's also kind of brutal. Do you know what I mean? And it's not. Carlin says that for it to be high fantasy, the fantasy elements have to have a profound effect on society. I can buy that. I can buy that. But I also think, like, when I think about it, you often tend to have, like, it's a bit more, you know, like you've got, like, good heroes in white hats and a bit more focus on nobles than non-nobles, which is why I feel a little bit uncomfortable with Lord of the Rings being high fantasy epic, yes, but yeah, maybe yeah, right? I think for high fantasy, magic or whatever has to affect regular people's lives. So Pratchett absolutely qualifies. Game of Thrones might, since the Summer Winter Cycle and White Walkers are a major influence on their society. Discworld I think Discworld counts, right? I don't think Lord of the Rings is high fantasy because magic has no effect on most people's lives. Wheel of Time, oh, that's good, Wheel of Time, yeah. And the thing is, when I think about high fantasy, there are a lot of different definitions you can use, right? But for me, I think sometimes nobles versus commoners, more magic versus less magic, slightly easier morality, perhaps. That is true. Most of the Fellowship, they are nobles. That is true. Yeah. Ooh, Dresden Files. Whew. So this is really tricky. Yeah. Dresden Files. I think this is really, ooh. Urban fantasy. Dresden Files is urban fantasy. Can we think of high versus low urban fantasy? Mary's a rich landowner. Pippin's family is infamous for their adventurous. Oh, that's true. Sam's the only commoner. Apparently I'm supposed to drink water right now. Can you have low and high in urban fantasy? Okay, wait. Would Harry Potter count as high fantasy? Right? It seems like a pretty magical world, right? Yes, no, yes. Good guys, bad guys. Harry Potter, high fantasy. Urban fantasy is a subset of low fantasy. I think that's fair. Because I often think that people often think of low fantasy as being grittier than high fantasy. Yeah, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, that's high fantasy, right? I see high fantasy as more large-scale morality versus more gritty, visceral stories. To be urban, you have to have a modern setting, and modern setting requires science, not magic, to be the driver advancement. Oh. Do you know what's really tricky? I think what's tricky is that I don't think that people would categorize Buffy as fantasy, even though it has magic, right? Low fantasy is to the fantasy world what noir is to mystery. Hrothgar, I like that. Yeah. So people often say, when we're thinking about like what is low fantasy, people will often say Conan is low fantasy, that the Conan world, because there's not as much magic, it's kind of gritty and violent. So people will say that is low fantasy. Conan, that's one that comes up a lot. Mm. So Shadowrun. Harry Potter's high fantasy. This is Krellin, but only because the stories about wizards and magic very much affect the lives of all wizards. Yeah, not always Krellin. There are a lot of urban fantasy stories with modern settings where the worlds will evolve with magic instead of science. Yes, sort of alternate reality, sort of high. Yeah. I'm agreeing with both Volpez and Krellin here. That if you told this Harry Potter story from the Muggles world, then it probably wouldn't be high fantasy at all. So I'm thinking about Disney as high fantasy, right? Like big castles and well, maybe not all Disney, but maybe some Disney. Ooh, Narnia. Ooh. It's like it's cyber fantasy, Wild Wild West. Well, it's not fantasy, right? Because there's no magic in Wild Wild West, the TV show at least. There's just weird science. But there's not. So Narnia, so for me, Narnia feels high fantasy because of the kind of the way morality works, right? The morality is like a bit more black and white. Oh, were you really? Oh, that's cool. Narnia itself is high fantasy. The stories themselves are, Wild Wild West is Weird West. Oh, isekai. Huh. Steampunk plus magic equals low fantasy. I think it depends on how much magic, right? So, another world. Oh. So here's the thing. Castle Falkenstein. Nice. I like that. That's really good. So Castle Falkenstein is steampunk fantasy. But I think of Castle Falkenstein, the RPG, as high fantasy because there are elves and dwarves and fae, right? And dragons. Magic is fairly ubiquitous. Like there's a lot of magic. The science is also kind of magic based, to be honest. And it's a very kind of romantic sort of setting with good guys and villains. It feels very you're going to go to a ball sort of a thing. It doesn't feel very punky is what I would say. I think so. It's Victorian. Wait, what do they call it? Here we go. Let's see what they say. Here we go. Right. So Castle Falkenstein, high adventure in the Steam Age. And yeah, so this is what they say. Do you need to know this? I don't know. Spellnapped. So many people forget the punk part of punk is supposed. Yes, it is supposed to mean something. It is. So this I think is really interesting. The difference between Castle Falkenstein and Clockwork Dominion. Where would you put Neil Gaiman? Good Omens is brilliant, I think. Ooh, that is a hard question. Okay, I'm going to read this to you so you can think about this, right? When computer game designer Tom Olam found himself sorcerously in Shanghai by a rogue wizard and a fairy lord, little did he suspect that he would soon become the pivotal force in the struggle to control an alternate Victorian universe. But before the deadly game could end, he would first have to battle gigantic land fortresses, outwit dragons, romance a beautiful adventuress, and defeat the evil legions of a dark court determined to destroy him at all costs. Then maybe, just maybe, he could find a way home again. It's a novel, it's a game, it's both. It's Castle Falkenstein, an amazing journey into another universe just a few steps away from our own. A place where dragons and steam power rule the skies, fairy lords duel atop the battlements, and where the forces of wizardry and magic meet the gaslight streets of the Victorian age. But with Castle Falkenstein, the story never ends, as you, too, take up saber and spell to adventure in a distant world on the other side of the mysterious fairy veil. A world of swashbuckling fantasy, high romance, and magical technology. The world of Castle Falkenstein. So, like, that feels to me like it's high fantasy and not particularly punky, like it's Steam Age, and I don't think the word steampunk is actually used. They use Steam Age. Well, this is by R. Telsorian Games. They use Steam Age, but not steampunk, and this feels to me very high fantasy. Like, a lot of elves, like elves and fancy dragons and all of that business, right? So that feels fundamentally different to me than, say, something like Clockwork Dominion, which is really putting the punk in the steampunk, where there's like poor orphans and magic is a little bit weird and not as prevalent. It's a little bit more mysterious and sort of distant, right? Yeah, the punk is generally is more having struggles between classes. Ooh, punk. I think I just missed something here. Hold on. Right. It can still be cyberpunk if you play lower level corporate people. There's punk to be had there. Most gaming is urban fantasy. Good Omens is not a typical work. The Darkness series by Harry Turtlelove is a great low fantasy. That's a good one. I'm not sure I've ever really seen steampunk, but the punk is generally having more struggle between classes, right? Like class struggle. Ooh, Studio Ghibli is really interesting. That's actually, Sock, I want to come back to that comment because there's a question I had about that. I read an old novel that had wizards that use programming to cast spells in different worlds. So here's the thing. Clockwork Dominion, the people who made it, including a friend of mine, they know their punk. Do you know what I mean? And right, there's this steampunk role playing in a Victorian world of gothic horror, and there's a lot of class struggle. And as a matter of fact, that's actually quite thematized, right? There's like thinking about struggle, class struggle, and power is really thematized in this game, in your character sheet, even because you have some different elements to your character that sort of represent sort of where you are in some of this hierarchy. There's a lot of like, so I think of this where there may be some magic, but it's often a little bit more distant and it's a little bit creepier. And like they talk about, like, there's a whole discussion of like the insane poverty in London for poor people and how like they're living in holes sometimes, right? So like this is, it doesn't feel, and there's like discussions of colonialism and class struggle and unfairness and hierarchy, and not necessarily, like, it doesn't feel romantic. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel romantic. And so this feels to me like steampunk, and it does have magic, but I don't know if it's fantasy. I suppose it is. I don't know if it is, though. That's like I don't know. So there are a few. Alan Dean Foster did a book. So supernatural be urban fantasy, low fantasy. Oh yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. It was about you had this question about Miyazaki, or the Emperor Sock wants to know about the Studio Ghibli films, and so here's my question. So this film that I saw, Shadow, it's in the theaters right now, and I don't think it's set in the real world. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Okay. So there are a number of Chinese films that are set in the past, but the past is fantastical, right? It's a fantastical past. sometimes super fantastical. It's set somewhere. So I suppose the question is, do we recognize fantasy if it's not from a Western perspective? That's my question. Right. Yes, like this, the myth. Thank you, Krillin. Like, yeah, thank you, Krillin. Like the mythic past. Do we think of things set in the mythic past as being fantasy? Do we think of King Arthur stories as fantasy? Right? I mean, I feel like Studio Ghibli's fantasy, right? That, I mean, yes. We can do that, right? Like that is a thing that we can say. I consider the Sorcerer's Crusade as fantasy, and it is explicitly is a mythic past story. Yeah, because I think that, like, because there's a question of like, do you consider legend fantasy? But I think yes. I think we can do that. Like, I think that's a thing that we can do. Because we're like, do we consider Sorcerer's Crusade is the Mage's ascension setting for the Dark? Oh, nice. Oh, like Vampire Dark Ages. I would say that it would be low fantasy since it does align with kind of our normal understanding, but adds fantasy. So this becomes interesting because then you get something like, you get, let me make sure that I don't have sound up. Okay, hold on. Whoop. Let me mute that. All right. So then what that means is that you can have, if we're thinking about King Arthur, you can have epic low fantasy. Ooh, Labyrinth. I think, Labyrinth is hard because it's got the morality play. Okay, Legend is high fantasy, right? Right, Legend with Tom Cruise and Mia Sara and Tim Curry, right? Like that. Princess Bride, also high fantasy, yes, right? Hey, Rissa. No, here's the thing. Rissa, I have to stop the stream early today because Wind Down is happening on Geek Space in, like, they should be starting at any moment, actually. Ooh, Pan's Labyrinth is a good one. Labyrinth is a high fantasy story in an urban fantasy world. Since the Goblin King exists in the shadows. Yeah. It is Wind Down time. Have they started actually streaming yet? I don't want us to raid, and they're live, everybody. Okay, so they have started. We're going to close our stream for today so we can move over to Wind Down at Geek Space, and I'm going to host them. I'm going to raid them. We're going to raid them. Wait, everybody, here's our raid command. This is our raid command. We're going to raid Geek Space TV, and then we're going to talk more about these things. Raid Geek Space TV. Okay, Sock. Everyone, I've got to go because we're going to go over to the Wind Down. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I am Trooper SJP. This is the Academic Foxhole, but I will see you on Saturday for Horizon Zero Dawn for real. But we are going to go and raid the Geek Space so we can find out what is going to happen with the end of the Geek Space. And I will see you all a little bit later, everybody. Thank you for being here. You all are wonderful. I'm going to do the raid. Yes, this is what we're going to do. Get some sleep, Sock, and I will see you all soon. I will catch you on the flip side. Thank you for being here, and we're going to go and say hi to the Geek Space, everybody. Bye.